Ever scroll through your phone wondering if the secret to feeling fantastic at any age is locked away in some exotic berry nut cup? Or maybe it's something simpler hiding in plain sight.
Yeah, or why some folks seem to just breeze through their 70s.
Exactly. While others.
Yeah.
And speaking of what's new and noteworthy, have you had a chance to catch the latest buzz?
It definitely feels like we're constantly bombarded with the next big thing in health and consumer trends. It's tough to sort the fact from the fiction sometimes.
Totally. And that's where we come in. Welcome to The Deep Dive, your shortcut to understanding what's really important.
We try, anyway.
Today, we're plunging into a fascinating collection of consumer news and trends that caught our eye on Consumers.app as of today, May 5th, 2025. We're especially looking at the insights shared on their Consumers 360 News Commentary podcast. So what's grabbing our attention right out of the gate?
Well, this headline from Food and Wine on MSN.com, it immediately sparks curiosity. Only 1 in 10 people age well, and they all have this eating plan in common.
Wow, okay, 1 in 10.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder, what is this magic eating plan? The key to healthy aging, apparently.
Right. So Consumers research really digs into this, pointing to something called the Alternative Healthy Eating Index, the AHEI.
AHEI. Okay, let's unpack this. It's not just another diet fad, is it? What exactly is the AHEI, and why should someone listening care about it for their long-term health?
Yeah, good question. Think of the AHEI less like a strict diet and more like a practical guide for your daily food choices.
A guide, okay.
It was developed by health experts, and it basically scores your diet. It looks at how often you eat foods linked to better health and, importantly, fewer chronic diseases.
So it's about tracking what you eat.
Sort of. It really emphasizes whole, unprocessed foods, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and it encourages minimizing things like, processed meats, sugary drinks, that kind of stuff.
Makes sense.
The core idea is that consistently making these types of choices helps reduce inflammation, and inflammation seems to be a big driver behind many age-related issues.
Inflammation. Right. So it's less about harsh restrictions and more about just consistently choosing nutrient-rich foods.
Yeah.
Sounds, more doable.
Exactly. It feels more sustainable for most people, and it's linked to real, tangible benefits.
Like what? How does this AHEI way of eating specifically help our hearts and minds as we get older?
Well, by focusing on those nutrient-dense foods, you're giving your body the building blocks it needs for a strong cardiovascular system, for sharp cognitive function, and limiting the processed stuff, the unhealthy fats. That helps keep that underlying inflammation in check, which directly supports both heart health and brain health.
Right. They're connected. Now, Consumers research also pointed to some recent work from the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. What did they find about AHEI and our long-term well-being?
Yeah, the Harvard research really backs this up strongly. It reinforces the power of the AHEI over the long haul.
Okay.
They found that people who consistently stick to this eating pattern tend to maintain better physical stamina, energy levels, and also mental sharpness as they age.
So it's not just about living longer, but living better longer.
Precisely. It suggests following the AHEI isn't just about adding years to your life, but adding healthy, active years, which is what most of us want, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that ties into, wasn't there a 30-year study mentioned in Nature Medicine?
Yes, exactly. Consumers research highlighted that one too. And a 30-year study, that provides really solid evidence.
So sure.
It showed that those who followed an AHEI-style diet had significantly better odds of aging healthily, specifically maintaining both physical abilities and cognitive function well past 75.
Wow.
It seems that consistent intake of plant-based, nutrient-rich foods is like a cornerstone for that healthy aging path.
So it's not about chasing the latest superfood trend every week.
Not at all. It's about the bigger picture, the overall pattern.
What are some of those broader dietary patterns that keep coming up in research?
Right.
Aging research reviews was mentioned. What I say is key.
Yeah, the research is pretty consistent. Diets rich in a variety of fruits and vegetables, think lots of color, whole grains, healthy unsaturated fats like olive oil, avocados.
Like good fats.
Right. Nuts, legumes, and moderate amounts of low-fat dairy. On the flip side, diets high in trans fats, too much sodium, sugary drinks, and lots of red or processed meats. Those are linked to less healthy aging outcomes.
Sounds like the advice our grandparent probably gave us, essentially. Eat your vegetables.
Pretty much. The wisdom holds up, and the AHEI compares well to other respected approaches, like those looked at in the Melbourne Collaborative Cohort study.
How so?
Well, that study also showed a strong positive link between AHEI scores and healthy aging. Its emphasis on plenty of fruit and moderating red meat intake. It just aligns with what consistently shows up as beneficial. Lower risk of chronic diseases as we get older.
Okay, so for someone listening now, what are the big takeaways? What are the public health implications if more people embraced an AHEI-style diet, especially thinking about later life?
The implications are huge, really, especially with populations aging globally. Promoting an AHEI-focused diet, getting enough of those whole, unprocessed foods, it isn't just about potentially living longer.
Right.
It's about improving the quality of those years, staying mentally sharp, physically active, feeling more vibrant. It's about maximizing independence and well-being.
That's a powerful message. Okay, let's shift slightly, but stay on this theme of food for longevity. Consumer Affairs had a headline, Eating for Longevity. Study links flavonoid-rich foods to healthy aging.
Yes, flavonoids.
We hear that term a lot. What are flavonoids exactly, and how do they fit into this healthy aging picture?
Flavonoids are basically a big group of beneficial compounds found naturally in plants, lots of plants.
Yeah.
They act as powerful antioxidants, so they help our bodies fight something called oxidative stress.
Right, the damage from free radicals and stuff.
Exactly. And oxidative stress is a major driver of aging and many diseases. So flavonoids are like tiny protectors for our cells. Research consistently links diets high in them to a lower risk of frailty and cognitive decline.
Okay, cell protectors, I like that. So this is great news. What are some common, maybe delicious, flavonoid-packed foods we should be putting in our shopping carts?
Good news indeed. Think black tea, a wide variety of berries. Blueberries are superstars here, but also raspberries, strawberries.
Berries.
Citrus fruits like oranges and grapefruits, apples. Even red wine in moderation contains flavonoids. These have all been linked to reduced physical decline as we age.
Likely because of those antioxidant properties shielding our cells.
That seems to be the main mechanism, yes.
Yeah.
Helping protect against that cumulative damage over time.
And it's not just physical health, right? Consumers research mentions studies linking flavonoids to sharper minds, too. Tell us more about that connection.
Absolutely. It's not just about the body. Recent research, the stuff Consumers Research flagged, shows that higher intake of flavonoids, along with other good plant compounds like carotenoids and plant-based proteins, is associated with lower odds of experiencing subjective cognitive decline.
Subjective cognitive decline. That's like feeling your memory isn't quite as sharp.
Exactly. That feeling that things aren't quite clicking like they used to. Foods like berries, citrus, leafy greens seem particularly good for maintaining cognitive health.
As someone who loves blueberries, this is music to my ears. Could these flavonoids also help with other age-related issues, maybe like diabetes management?
There's some promising research there, too. It suggests flavonoids might have properties that could complement traditional diabetes treatments.
How so?
Things like reducing that oxidative stress we mentioned and potentially improving overall metabolic profiles. Both are really crucial for controlling blood sugar and preventing complications down the road.
Okay, that's interesting. Now, are there any downsides? Anything we need to be careful about when loading up on flavonoid-rich foods?
Generally, they're very beneficial, but it's worth noting one thing. Some flavonoid-rich foods can interact with certain medications.
Oh, like what?
Grapefruit is the classic example. It's high in flavonoids, but it can interfere with how the body processes quite a few common drugs.
Right, I've heard that.
So if you're on medication, especially for things like cholesterol or blood pressure, it's always smart just to check with your doctor or pharmacist about potential interactions.
That's a really important practical tip. Good reminder. Now, are there specific dietary patterns that just naturally pack in a lot of these flavonoids?
Yes, definitely. The Mediterranean diet is a great example, and also the MIND diet, which is specifically designed for brain health.
MIND diet. Okay.
Both of those eating patterns really emphasize fruits, vegetables, nuts, whole grains, all fantastic sources of flavonoids. And no surprise, both diets are linked to better cognitive function and lower risks of chronic diseases.
It all seems to connect back, doesn't it? Finally, Consumers Research mentioned anthocyanins, those pigments in blueberries and raspberries. Do they have a special role?
Anthocyanins are actually a specific type of flavonoid. They're the compounds that give those deep blue, red, and purple colors to foods like blueberries, raspberries, even things like black rice or eggplant skin.
the colors.
Yeah. And what's really exciting is some research suggests they might have the potential to actually reverse some age-related declines in brain function and behavior.
Wow.
It's still early research, but the potential is there. So those colorful foods aren't just pretty. They could be real powerhouses for our brain health as we get older.
This is all so encouraging about how we can nourish ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay, let's switch gears now to another vital piece of the healthy aging puzzle, fitness.
Absolutely crucial.
Today on MSN.com had a headline that caught my eye. The 4 things every woman 50 plus should prioritize in their fitness routine. What are those key priorities?
Okay, according to that article highlighted by Consumers Research, the top fitness priorities for women over 50 are, number 1, strength training.
Strength training, okay.
Then exercises that improve mobility, think flexibility, and finally, techniques for managing stress.
Stress management, interesting.
Yeah, it's crucial. Strength training becomes especially important because we naturally lose muscle mass as we age, quite a bit, actually, after 30.
Right, sarcopenia.
Exactly. Mobility work like stretching or yoga helps maintain flexibility, prevents stiffness, and managing stress is just vital for overall well-being. Of course, a good routine should also include some cardio for heart health, too.
Strength training keeps coming up when we talk about aging well. Why is it so important, especially for women in this age group?
It's absolutely essential. It directly fights that age-related muscle loss, and maintaining muscle strength is vital for everyday activities, carrying groceries, getting up from a chair, balance.
Prevents falls too, right?
Big time. Plus, it's key for improving and maintaining bone density. That's a huge concern for older adults, particularly women post-menopause, regarding osteoporosis risk.
Good.
So regular strength training leads to better balance, better posture, and just overall more physical resilience.
Got it. What about vitamin D? The sunshine vitamin. How does that fit in with muscle strength and performance as we age, especially for much older adults?
Vitamin D plays a really significant role. Research shows low levels of a key form of vitamin D are linked to decreased grip strength and a decline in physical performance. This is especially noticeable in the very old, say 85 plus.
So deficiency is a problem.
It can be. Ensuring adequate vitamin D intake, whether from sun exposure safely, food, or supplements if needed, seems to help slow down that decline in muscle strength, which is so important for staying independent.
So it's not just diet, not just exercise, but nutrients too. It's all connected. What kind of exercise routine balances these elements effectively for women over 50 aiming for longevity?
Yeah, a truly balanced routine needs several components. Strength training that hits all the major muscle groups, definitely.
Okay.
Cardiovascular exercise that gets your heart rate up could be brisk walking, swimming, cycling, whatever you enjoy.
Right.
And flexibility exercises like stretching or yoga to maintain range of motion. This kind of comprehensive approach addresses muscle, bone, heart, and even mental well-being.
And how does staying active benefit our brains specifically? It's not just about the physical stuff, is it?
Not at all. Regular exercise is fundamental for brain health, especially as we age. Physical activity boosts cognitive function, it reduces the risk of developing dementia, and promotes overall mental well-being.
How does it do that?
Well, it increases blood flow to the brain, which helps nourish brain cells. It also supports the growth of new neurons and enhances something called neuroplasticity.
Neuroplasticity, brain's ability to adapt.
Exactly. Its ability to reorganize itself, learn new things. That's crucial for cognitive resilience as we get older. Exercise keeps the brain adaptable.
It sounds like finding a routine you actually enjoy and can stick with is the real key then.
Absolutely. Consistency is everything.
So what factors should women over 50 consider when choosing a routine to really maximize longevity and quality of life?
Well, you want to make sure it covers the main bases. Cardiovascular for heart health, strength training for muscle and bone, flexibility for mobility and injury prevention.
And stress management.
And stress management, yes. Don't forget that. Whether it's through the exercise itself, like yoga, or dedicated practices like meditation, it's about creating a holistic approach that fits your life and that you'll actually do.
The article highlighted by Consumers Research specifically mentioned yoga. What unique benefits does yoga offer women over 50?
Yoga is fantastic for this age group. It excels at improving flexibility and balance, which, as we said, significantly cuts the risk of falls.
Huge benefit.
Yeah. It also enhances mental clarity and reduces stress through its focus on breath work and mindfulness. That's great for mental health.
And joints.
Yes, it can support joint health, too, often being lower impact than other exercises. It can even help alleviate symptoms of chronic conditions like arthritis for some people. It really contributes to overall quality of life.
This is all incredibly valuable advice for listeners thinking about staying active. Okay, let's pivot now to a topic that, well, often becomes more relevant as we or our loved ones age: long-term care.
A challenging topic for many families.
Definitely. Medical Express on MSN.com had a headline: "The age-old problem of long-term care."
What are the main types of facilities or care options available for older adults who might need more support?
Consumers research breaks it down into primarily four main types. First, you have independent living facilities. These are for seniors who are still pretty independent, but maybe want the convenience of community living, meals, less home maintenance.
Okay, more about lifestyle.
Right. Then there are assisted living communities. These offer help with daily activities, maybe dressing, bathing, medication management.
A bit more support. Exactly. Then you have nursing homes, which provide more comprehensive medical care, including skilled nursing and rehabilitation services.
Okay.
And finally, memory care units. These are specifically designed and staffed for individuals with Alzheimer's or other forms of dementia.
It's important to remember that long-term care isn't just about medical needs, is it? What's the broader focus?
That's a crucial point. It really aims beyond just medical treatment. The primary goal is often to promote independence for as long as possible and enhance the person's overall quality of life.
How?
Through personalized, coordinated services. It includes that help with daily activities, but also providing safe, supportive environments, social engagement, adapting to physical or cognitive limitations.
We're seeing tech pop up everywhere.
Yeah.
How are technological advancements being used in elderly care?
It's a rapidly growing area. We're seeing things like healthcare robots, AI-powered monitoring systems. Consumers Research mentioned one called Wellzyme.ai.
Wellzyme.ai, what does it do?
It's designed to help seniors live independently for longer, partly by monitoring their activity and even aspects of their mental well-being.
Interesting.
What's important is that these technologies are increasingly being developed with input from seniors, their families, healthcare pros, to make sure they actually meet needs and address ethical concerns like privacy.
That's good to hear. The COVID-19 pandemic really put a spotlight on many systems. What specific challenges in elderly care did it expose?
Sadly, yes, the pandemic revealed some significant vulnerabilities, big gaps in preparedness, issues with staff training, and sometimes leadership challenges within facilities.
Specifically.
Things like infection control education. Clearly, there was a need for more robust training. And maybe more effective on-the-job support and leadership during such an intense crisis. It really highlighted the need to strengthen these systems for the future.
Are lessons being learned? How is smart technology being used now, maybe more proactively, to predict potential health issues?
There's a lot of work in that area, using smart tech to develop predictive models for health behaviors.
How does that work?
By analyzing various data points, activity levels, sleep patterns, maybe even social interaction data from sensors, these models try to assess current health and forecast potential future issues.
So catching problems earlier.
That's the goal, to allow for more proactive, personalized care management. Hopefully identifying declines or risks early before they become serious crises.
You mentioned the importance of involving stakeholders, patients, families, doctors in developing AI for elderly care. Why is that so critical?
It's absolutely crucial because without that input, you risk developing tech that's maybe clever but not actually useful or even intrusive or unethical.
Right.
Involving patient groups, doctors, and the elderly themselves ensures the solutions are effective, user-friendly, and address real needs and values. It leads to much more practical and beneficial technology.
Makes sense. Looking ahead then, what are some key areas we need to focus on to improve elderly care systems overall?
It's definitely multifaceted. We need better ongoing infection control education for everyone involved in care, stronger leadership development within care settings, better networking for sharing best practices between facilities. And as tech becomes more common, we absolutely have to address privacy concerns up front and ensure these tools are used with empathy, focusing on the human side of care.
Lots to consider there. Okay, let's shift gears again. A topic on many people's minds, especially lately, retirement and recession fears.
Yes, definitely a source of anxiety for many.
TheStreet had a headline asking, "Can you safely retire amid recession fears?" What are some key strategies financial experts recommend for protecting retirement savings during these uncertain times?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Generally, the advice centers on maintaining a long-term perspective. Avoid panic selling when markets dip.
Easier said than done sometimes.
True, but key strategies include having a well-diversified portfolio. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Continue making regular contributions if you can. That's dollar cost averaging.
Buying more shares when prices are lower.
Exactly. And crucially, having a cash reserve. Enough readily accessible cash to cover maybe 12 to 18 months of essential living expenses.
Why is that so important?
It prevents you from being forced to sell investments at a loss during a downturn just to pay the bills. Some people also use a bucket approach, segmenting assets based on when they'll need them. Short-term, mid-term, long-term.
Diversification. We hear that word all the time.
Yeah.
How can diversifying within asset classes, like stocks, specifically help during a recession?
It's a good point. It's not just about stocks versus bonds. Within stocks, certain sectors tend to hold up better during recessions. These are often called defensive stocks.
That's what?
Think utilities, healthcare, consumer staples, things people need regardless of the economy. Spreading investments across these more resilient areas can help cushion your portfolio against broader market declines.
It's interesting how the whole idea of retirement has changed. Consumers research touch on the history. How different is it today?
Oh, vastly different. Widespread retirement as we know it is pretty recent, historically speaking. Really emerged late 19th, early 20th century.
Before that,
people generally worked until they physically couldn't. Lifespans were shorter, fewer safety nets. Now, especially in developed countries, retirement is often seen almost as a right, often linked to pensions or savings, allowing people to stop full-time work.
A huge societal shift.
Yeah.
Now, consumers research also noted something interesting. Senior living as an investment can be surprisingly recession resilient. Why is that?
Yeah, it often holds up relatively well. A few key reasons. Revenue streams from rent and care fees tend to be quite stable. People still need care regardless of the economy.
Demand is consistent.
Right. The industry also often gets support from government programs like Medicaid and Medicare. Plus, the underlying demographic trend, the aging population, means demand for senior living services is generally growing long term.
Are there any potential downsides for the senior living industry during a recession?
One potential challenge is affordability for new residents. If seniors have trouble selling their homes in a weak housing market, that can slow down move-ins. That's often how they finance the move.
Oh, okay.
But the range of services, from independent living up to skilled nursing, helps cater to different needs and financial situations, which provides some buffer.
So for listeners nearing or in retirement, the message seems to be stay the course, stay diversified, and have that cash cushion ready.
Absolutely. Diversification remains a cornerstone for managing risk in uncertain economic times. Spreading your savings helps reduce the potential hit from any single market event.
Okay, practical advice. Now let's move to something closer to home. For many of us, our furry or maybe feathery family members are pets.
Yes, always an important topic.
Daily Express had a headline. Vet shares 6 signs you shouldn't ignore, signaling your pet needs urgent attention. What are some of those critical red flags we should absolutely not ignore?
Okay, according to the vet expert Consumers Research highlighted, some really critical signs are noticeable difficulty breathing, any gasping or struggling.
That sounds serious.
It is. Also, uncontrolled bleeding, any kind of seizure, sudden collapse, or if your pet suddenly can't walk or stand properly.
Those all sound like definite emergencies.
Yes. They usually indicate very serious underlying problems that need immediate professional veterinary attention. Don't wait.
It can sometimes be tricky, though. How do you tell the difference between a minor upset tummy versus something truly urgent?
That's a common dilemma. Look for things like persistent vomiting or severe diarrhea, not just a single episode. Extreme lethargy, like your pet is way more tired than usual, really unresponsive.
Okay.
Or any sudden drastic change in their behavior or physical condition that just seems wrong. If you're ever unsure, the best advice is always call your vet. Err on the side of caution.
They can help you assess over the phone sometimes, sure.
Often, yes.
Yeah.
They can guide you on whether it's a true emergency or something that can wait for an appointment.
Our pets can't just tell us, I feel awful, so we rely on observation. How crucial is knowing your pet's normal baseline behavior?
It's absolutely vital. Knowing their usual energy levels, their appetite, their bathroom habits, how they normally play or rest, that allows you to spot deviations quickly.
Subtle changes can matter.
Definitely. Sometimes subtle changes are the first sign of a serious problem. So being really familiar with your pet's normal is probably the most powerful tool you have as an owner.
Are there common mistakes or misconceptions pet owners have about emergencies that might make them delay getting care?
Yes, unfortunately. A big one is underestimating seemingly minor symptoms. maybe a little bit of blood, or just being slightly off.
Thinking it'll pass.
Right. Or ignoring more subtle signs like decreased appetite or activity, hoping they'll just bounce back. These things can escalate quickly if not addressed.
Good reminder to trust our gut if something feels off. What about that breathing difficulty? If you see your pet struggling to breathe, what are the immediate first steps?
Okay, number 1, try to stay calm yourself. Your pet will pick up on your panics.
Right.
Number 2, get them to a vet immediately. Call ahead if possible so they can prepare. While transporting them, try to ensure their airway is clear, no tight collars, and keep them as still and stress-free as you can.
Okay. What about those emergency first aid things you sometimes see online for pets, like CPR or stopping bleeding? Are they actually effective? When should we even attempt them?
Techniques like applying direct pressure to control bleeding or even pet CPR in a dire situation can be life-saving, but, and this is a big but,
yes,
they should really only be used when immediate professional veterinary care is absolutely impossible to access right away. And even then, there are only temporary measures. You still need to get to a vet as soon as humanly possible. They don't replace professional care.
Got it. Temporary measures only. Lastly, consumers research mentioned advances in veterinary diagnostics like special imaging. How can that help when symptoms are vague?
Yeah, things like advanced imaging, they mentioned PSMA, PAECT scans as an example, are really helping vets see what's going on inside when external symptoms are unclear.
How so?
These technologies can provide much more detailed images than traditional X-rays or ultrasounds. They can be particularly useful for finding things like small tumors, inflammation, or other internal issues that might be causing vague symptoms like weight loss or lethargy.
That's great that veterinary medicine is advancing too. Okay, shifting gears quite dramatically now, let's touch on a concerning social media trend. The New York Post reported on it. These are the self-bullying phrases leading the toxic world of hashtag SkinnyTok and why they're so dangerous.
Oh, yes, SkinnyTok, it's deeply concerning.
What exactly is this trend, and why is it considered so dangerous?
SkinnyTok is basically a hashtag and a trend, mainly on TikTok, that promotes extreme weight loss methods. It often glorifies really restrictive eating habits and this idea of toxic discipline around food and exercise.
Toxic discipline.
Yeah, like punishing yourself, never allowing any flexibility, obsessive focus. It's dangerous because it normalizes and encourages behaviors that are hallmarks of eating disorders. And it fuels anxiety and depression, especially among young users constantly seeing these often unrealistic and unhealthy thinness ideals.
It sounds incredibly harmful, particularly for younger people developing their body image. What impact is it having on mental health specifically?
The impact seems significant and negative. Constant exposure to this curated, often unattainable thinness ideal promoted on SkinnyTok can seriously increase feelings of anxiety, depression, inadequacy, and low self-worth.
Comparing yourself constantly.
Exactly. Experts are really worried about the damage this does to young people's self-esteem and their relationship with their body.
And it's not just mental health, right?
Yeah.
What about the physical risks of the extreme tactics SkinnyTok seems to promote?
No, the physical health risks are substantial too. These extreme approaches can lead to serious problems like malnutrition, not getting essential nutrients, electrolyte imbalances, which can mess with heart function and nerves, general frailty, muscle wasting, even bone fractures from nutrient deficiencies weakening the bones. These aren't just temporary diets. They can have lasting, even life-threatening consequences.
It's alarming this stuff spreads so easily. How do health and nutrition experts view this kind of content, promoting restrictive eating and this toxic discipline online?
Experts are pretty unified in condemning it. They see it as incredibly harmful, especially for young, impressionable audiences.
They stress it's not real health advice.
Absolutely. They emphasize that these unhealthy behaviors, often disguised as wellness tips from unverified sources, can lead directly to serious physical and mental health issues, particularly eating disorders. They strongly advise against getting health guidance from influencers who lack credentials.
Consumers research mentions something called the exercise paradox in this context. What's that about?
The exercise paradox is this observation. While exercise is undeniably vital for health, it doesn't always lead to significant weight loss for everyone on its own.
Oh, interesting.
Diet usually plays a much bigger role in weight change. This reality can be frustrating for people and can actually fuel some of the unhealthy narratives on SkinnyTok, where there's often an unrealistic expectation that just exercising more, sometimes excessively, should result in dramatic thinness.
So it sets people up for disappointment or extreme measures.
Exactly. Understanding that exercise has tons of benefits beyond weight loss is important for setting healthy, realistic expectations.
So instead of these dangerous trends, what are the healthy, sustainable alternatives people should focus on if they're concerned about their weight or health?
The healthy alternatives are really about building balanced long-term habits. Focus on nutritious eating with lots of whole foods. Find regular physical activity you actually enjoy so you'll stick with it.
Right.
Practice mindful eating, listening to your body's hunger and fullness cues. And crucially, if you have concerns, talk to qualified professionals, doctors, registered dietitians for personalized advice. It's about lifestyle, not quick, damaging fixes.
Is anything being done to combat these harmful trends on the platforms themselves?
The platforms are starting to take some action, yes. Things like banning accounts that explicitly promote eating disorder behaviors.
That's something.
It is. There are also ongoing discussions about the broader impact of beauty standards online, algorithms promoting this stuff, and potential for stricter regulations. But it's a complex challenge.
Definitely a space to watch.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about a tool we often use related to weight, but one with known limitations. Body mass index, or BMI.
Ah, yes. The ubiquitous BMI.
Medical Express had a headline. Body mass index, BMI. What it tells you and what it doesn't. Let's start with the basics. What is BMI? How is it calculated?
Okay, so BMI is a simple calculation. It uses your weight and height to give a rough estimate of body mass. The formula is weight in kilograms divided by height in meters squared.
QGM2.
Right. And the resulting number is used to put adults into broad categories. Underweight, normal weight, overweight, obese.
It's widely used, but as the headline says, it doesn't tell the whole story. What are its main limitations as a health indicator?
The biggest limitation is that BMI doesn't distinguish between muscle and fat. Muscle is much denser than fat.
So a bodybuilder could be obese.
Exactly. Someone very muscular but lean could have a high BMI that classifies them as overweight or obese, even if they're perfectly healthy with low body fat.
Right.
It also doesn't account for where fat is distributed in the body.
Which matters, right? Belly fat versus hip fat.
Yes. Visceral fat, the fat around organs, is considered more metabolically risky than subcutaneous fat under the skin. BMI tells you nothing about that. So while it can be okay for looking at large populations, it's less reliable for assessing an individual's health risk.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Consumers research mentioned an interesting connection between rapid weight loss or really strenuous exercise and something called thiamine deficiency. What's that link?
Yeah, that was an interesting case study note. Thiamine, or vitamin B1, is crucial for metabolizing carbohydrates and for nerve function. In situations of rapid weight loss, extremely high carb intake without enough thiamine, or very strenuous, prolonged exercise, the body's demand for thiamine can increase significantly. If intake doesn't keep up, a deficiency can develop.
And that causes problems.
Yes, the case mentioned neuroophthalmic symptoms, problems with vision and eye nerves. It just highlights the importance of balanced nutrition, especially during big changes in diet or exercise levels.
Good point. Shifting slightly, Consumers research also talked about using social media data, like from Twitter, to understand public health opinions. How does that work?
It's a fascinating area of research. Social media generates this massive amount of public discourse data. Researchers can analyze huge numbers of posts, like the 4.5 million tweets mentioned, related to topics like exercise, obesity, diet.
To see what people are thinking.
Exactly. To understand public perceptions, attitudes, maybe identify emerging trends or misinformation. The study found correlations between discussions of exercise and obesity. This kind of analysis can potentially help public health officials tailor their messaging or interventions better.
Using big data for public health insights. Interesting. Now, if BMI has limitations, are there better alternatives for assessing body fat and health risks? Consumers research mentioned the Body Roundness Index, or BRI.
Yes, BRI is one proposed alternative. It tries to give a more accurate estimate of body fat percentage and specifically that visceral fat we talked about compared to BMI.
How does it do that?
It uses a different formula that incorporates waist circumference or body girth along with height, aiming to capture body shape or roundness better. Some research suggests it might be better than BMI at predicting risks for things like metabolic syndrome.
Is it widely used?
Not yet, not like BMI. It's newer, and more research is still needed to fully validate it and see where it's most useful. But it represents the ongoing search for better individual health assessment tools beyond BMI.
Okay. And one last point in this area. Knowledge graphs being used in exercise recommendation systems.
Yeah.
What are the pros and cons there?
Knowledge graphs are basically ways to structure information and show relationships between things. In exercise, they could model links between different exercises, muscle groups worked, difficulty levels, etc.
To give better recommendations.
That's the idea, to create more personalized, effective workout plans by understanding the nuances how representative or informative an exercise is. The challenge, as Consumers research noted, is that current algorithms might oversimplify these complex relationships, maybe not fully capturing how different exercises complement each other.
So potential, but needs refinement.
Got it.
Okay, let's jump back into fitness specifics. Cardio versus weights. Fitgur on MSN.com asked, cardio and weights, enemies or the perfect combo for your workout? What's the general consensus?
The overwhelming consensus now is definitely the perfect combo.
Yeah.
Far from enemies.
Why? What are the benefits of doing both?
Combining them offers a whole range of benefits. You get improved cardiovascular health from the cardio, obviously, but you also get increased strength and muscle endurance from the weights. Plus, the combination seems particularly effective for enhancing fat loss.
More bang for your buck, workout-wise.
Kind of, yeah. They complement each other really well for overall fitness and health.
We know cardio is good for the heart. What are the general recommendations, like from the World Health Organization?
The WHO generally recommends adults aim for at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic activity per week, or 75 minutes of vigorous intensity activity.
Right.
This significantly reduces the risk of major killers like heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, some cancers, and early death. Even smaller amounts help that stat. About just 11 minutes a day lowering risk is pretty compelling.
It really is. Now, the old debate. Does cardio kill your muscle gains from weightlifting? What does recent research say about combining them effectively?
That's been a long-standing concern, especially in bodybuilding circles. But recent research suggests that concern might be overblown if you program correctly. Meaning, if you structure your training thoughtfully, balance the volume and intensity, allow for adequate recovery, get enough nutrition, combining cardio and weights can absolutely support muscle growth. The study mentioned by Consumers Research showed improvements in both strength and endurance over 21 weeks with combined training.
So it's not either, it's about how you combine them.
Exactly. Balance and smart programming are key. Don't just add tons of cardio randomly on top of heavy lifting without adjusting recovery or nutrition.
Makes sense. How does integrating both types help with fat loss, which is a goal for many people?
It's a powerful combo for fat loss. Cardio burns a significant number of calories during the workout. Weight training builds lean muscle mass.
And muscle burns more calories at rest.
Precisely. More muscle boosts your resting metabolic rate, so you burn more calories throughout the day, even when you're not exercising. It's a two-pronged attack on fat stores.
It's cool to think about the changes inside our bodies. What happens physiologically with regular aerobic exercise? Consumers research mentioned mitochondria.
Yeah, at the cellular level, aerobic exercise triggers really beneficial adaptations. One key thing is it prompts remodeling of mitochondria, especially in the liver and heart muscle.
Mitochondria, the cell's power plants.
Right. Exercise enhances their ability to produce ATP, the energy currency of the cell, particularly from carbohydrates. This improved energy production capacity is fundamental to endurance and overall metabolic health.
Fascinating. Lastly, on fitness combos, what about mind-body exercises? Consumers research noted their impact on cardiometabolic health, especially for type 2 diabetes.
Yes, practices like yoga, meditation, mindfulness, they're showing real promise for improving cardiometabolic markers.
Like blood sugar.
Exactly. Studies have found these practices can help lower fasting blood sugar, HbA1c, a measure of long-term blood sugar control, and blood pressure in people with type 2 diabetes.
Better than conventional exercise sometimes.
In some studies, for certain outcomes, yes. It really highlights that mind-body connection. Stress reduction, improved insulin sensitivity. These practices seem to influence metabolic health through multiple pathways, not just physical exertion.
Very holistic. Okay, fantastic insights on fitness. Let's shift now to the future of food, maybe. Plant-based and cultured meats.
A rapidly evolving landscape.
Definitely. Green Queen had a headline. Plant-based meat is too generic, says study on how culture shapes eating habits. This suggests perception is key. What were the cultural differences found between, say, the UK and Singapore?
That study, highlighted by Consumers Research, found some really interesting differences. In the UK, people seem more motivated to eat plant-based meats due to environmental or animal welfare concerns. Consumption is generally higher there.
Okay. In Singapore?
In Singapore, there seem to be more barriers, maybe related to taste, texture, or tradition, less focus on the ethical drivers, perhaps. The UK market is just more mature, and average consumption of things like plant-based beef was notably higher.
Culture really does shape our plates, doesn't it? Now let's clarify terms. What's the difference between cultured meat and plant-based meat?
Good question. They're often confused. Cultured meat, sometimes called lab-grown or cell-based meat, is made by growing actual animal muscle cells in a lab using tissue engineering. The goal is real meat, without raising and slaughtering the whole animal.
Okay, meat grown from cells.
Right. Plant-based meat, on the other hand, is made entirely from plant ingredients, soy, pea protein, wheat, gluten, mushrooms, etc. It's designed to mimic the taste and texture of meat.
Got it. Plant-based is available now. Cultured is still emerging.
Exactly. Plant-based is mainstream. Cultured meat is still mostly in development and navigating regulatory approvals, though some products are starting to appear in limited markets.
The science for cultured meat sounds complex. What tech advancements are helping make it more viable or appealing?
There's a lot of innovation. Machine learning is being used to optimize the complex process of growing the cells efficiently.
Using AI?
Yeah, to speed things up and cut costs. There's also a lot of work on scaffolding, creating structures for the cells to grow on to get a better, more meat-like texture. Things like 3D bioprinting or using electrospun nanofibers.
Wow, sound like sci-fi. Now, back to plant-based meats, which we can buy. What are the main health benefits people associate with them?
Generally, compared to conventional meat, plant-based options tend to be lower in saturated fat and calories, and they have zero cholesterol. They can be a good source of protein and fiber, too.
But check the label.
Always check the label. Sodium levels can sometimes be high, and nutritional profiles vary a lot between brands and products. Some are healthier than others.
Despite being available, you mentioned barriers to acceptance, like in Singapore. What are the main challenges plant-based meats face generally?
Taste and texture are still big ones for many consumers, especially those trying to directly replace meat. Replicating that exact sensory experience is hard.
Familiarity, too.
Familiarity, cultural fit, sometimes price point. And as mentioned, some skepticism remains about whether they're really healthier or just highly processed alternatives. Overcoming these perceptions is key.
It's interesting to see governments getting involved. Consumers research mentioned the UK's Food Standards Agency, FSA, supporting cultured meat development.
Yes, the UK FSA is taking a proactive role. They're working on setting up the regulatory pathways needed to ensure these novel foods are safe before they reach consumers. That kind of regulatory clarity and support is really important for building trust and helping the industry grow.
Makes sense. Looking ahead, what's the expected future for both these markets, plant-based and cultured?
The general expectation is significant growth for both, driven by rising awareness about sustainability, animal welfare, and health associated with reducing conventional meat consumption.
Tech will help.
Definitely. Technological advances making the products better and cheaper, plus regulatory approvals for cultured meat, will likely fuel growth. We might also see hybrid products, maybe plant-based, with cultured fat added for better flavor.
Hybrid products. Interesting. Okay, let's look at another angle on plants. FOX5 Atlanta on MSN.com had a piece, The Healthy Power of Plant-Based Foods, reinforcing the benefits.
Yes. This article, flagged by Consumers Research, really hammered home those core health benefits again. Plant-focused diets consistently linked to lower risks of heart disease, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, certain cancers.
Drug management, too.
Often, yes. Likely due to higher fiber, lower calorie density. It's about the overall pattern, rich in fiber, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants. Low in saturated fat.
It's a consistent message. Now, what are apocarotenoids? And how are they helping innovate in plant-based foods?
Apocarotenoids are compounds derived from carotenoids, those pigments giving carrots their orange or tomatoes their red.
Okay.
Researchers are exploring using them to boost both the nutrition and the sensory qualities of plant-based foods. They can contribute color, aroma, even flavor. Think enhancing the meatiness or adding specific flavor notes naturally.
Using plant compounds to make plant foods better. Cool. The market is clearly buzzing. What are some specific developments Consumers Research highlighted for, say, 2025?
Yeah, lots happening. Continued projected market growth, obviously. More diversity in protein sources, moving beyond just soy and pea to things like chickpea, fava bean, even algae becoming more common.
Oh.
Yep. Also, advances in fermentation technology to improve textures and flavors. AI being used to design novel, hyper-customized flavor profiles. And a trend towards highlighting single origin ingredients, similar to coffee or chocolate.
Sophistication is increasing. How do purely plant-based diets stack up against something well-established like the Mediterranean diet?
They share a lot of common ground and benefits because both heavily emphasize plant foods. The Mediterranean diet traditionally includes moderate fish, some dairy, olive oil. It has decades of research showing benefits for longevity and chronic disease prevention.
And plant-based.
Well-planned plant-based diets offer very similar advantages: lower heart disease risk, better weight management, etc. The key shared element is that focus on fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds.
Technology again. How is digitalization changing the supply chain for plant-based foods?
Digital tools are making a big difference. E-commerce platforms obviously expand reach, but also things like IoT, Internet of Things sensors in farming or processing can optimize resource use, track conditions, improve efficiency and sustainability all along the chain.
Making it more efficient to meet demand.
Exactly. Better matching supply and demand, reducing waste, ensuring quality.
And what about flavors? What are the emerging trends making plant-based more exciting?
We're seeing a move towards bolder, more complex, globally inspired flavors, not just trying to mimic meat, but creating unique, delicious profiles using spices and ingredients like za'atar from the Middle East, gochujang from Korea, aji amarillo from Peru.
Sounds delicious.
Right. Also, hyper-customized flavor profiles using AI, as we mentioned, and interesting spice blends, making plant-based appealing in its own right, not just as a substitute.
Finally, how is this whole plant-based movement impacting the wider food industry's approach to sustainability?
It's a major driver. It's pushing the entire industry to look more closely at the environmental footprint of food production, particularly animal agriculture's role in greenhouse gas emissions, land use, water use.
Creating pressure for change.
Definitely. It's encouraging innovation and alternatives and prompting traditional players to develop more sustainable practices or incorporate plant-based options. It aligns with growing consumer demand for more ethical and eco-conscious food.
Okay, one last related headline from Green Queen. Swiss ban on plant-based meat labels contradictory to national nutrition strategy. What's happening there?
The labeling debate. Switzerland apparently introduced a ban preventing plant-based products from using meat-like terms, sausage, steak, etc. The reasoning given was to avoid consumer deception.
Okay, clarity for consumers, but contradictory.
Yes, that's the interesting part. Critics point out that Switzerland also has a national nutrition strategy that aims to boost plant-based food consumption for health and sustainability reasons. So, banning common recognizable terms could actually hinder that goal by making the products harder to find or understand.
A potential unintended consequence. Could this Swiss decision impact the rest of Europe?
It could potentially set a precedent or influence discussions in other countries that are also grappling with how to regulate labeling for these novel foods. Industry groups are often concerned these kinds of restrictions stifle innovation and disadvantage plant-based options.
How might this ruling affect how consumers actually see these products?
It could cause confusion. If you can't call a plant-based sausage a sausage, what do you call it? Does it make it seem less appealing or harder to integrate into familiar meals? Or does it reinforce the distinction, which some might prefer? It's debatable.
What are the general arguments for and against using meat-like terms?
Proponents say using familiar terms helps consumers understand what the product is for, how to cook it, and encourages trial-boosting sales and the shift to plant-based. Opponents, often from the traditional meat industry, but also some consumer groups, argue it's misleading and undermines the distinction between animal products and alternatives.
It's a tricky balance between clear marketing and consumer protection, isn't it?
Exactly. It reflects broader trends in how we innovate in food and retail while ensuring consumers aren't being misled. The Swiss case really highlights that tension.
Wow. Okay. We've covered a lot of ground today. From the AHEI diet and flavonoids for healthy aging to fitness priorities after 50, navigating long-term care, retirement fears, pet emergencies, toxic TikTok trends, BMI alternatives, workout combos, and the whole evolving world of plant-based and cultured meats.
It really is a whirlwind of consumer news and trends, isn't it? All sourced from Consumers.app today, May 5th. It shows how interconnected everything is: our health, our finances, technology, even our food labels.
Absolutely. It highlights how staying informed across these areas helps us make choices that impact our daily lives, from what we eat for dinner to planning for the future, or even knowing when to rush our pet to the vet.
Hopefully listeners have picked up some useful insights or things to think about.
We certainly hope so. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. We hope it's given you, our listeners, some valuable perspectives. What's one thing you heard today that really resonated or maybe made you think differently?
It's been a fascinating discussion. Lots to digest.
Indeed. And as we wrap up, here's a final thought to maybe noodle on. With all these rapid advancements at how we understand health, food science, and technology, what new challenges or perhaps unexpected opportunities might we face as consumers just around the corner? What will aging well even look like in another, say, 20 years?
That's a big question to ponder. The pace of change is incredible.